We're making great strides at CABC, I think, to do everything we can to let folks know that the process really is perhaps more accessible than they think. With the new indicators coming out, reduced by 40%, that has tremendously reduced the workload and some of the redundancy that we heard from folks. The other thing I would encourage birth centers about is that anything we do the first time could be a little more work, right? But it doesn't have to be quite so intimidating. The work does get less over time, and I think that most birth centers find great satisfaction in going through the process. They might learn a great deal about their own team, their birth centers, their strengths, and things that they want to do differently, and find that the time that they put in was really worth it to get accredited.
Accreditation can take some extra time, especially leading up to your site visit. But if you're keeping track of when you need to be doing your drills, if you're keeping track of the different quality metrics that you're held to as part of your accreditation, it's really not that much extra time in your week each day.
We've listened to what birth centers want, and we've really made some changes in the whole process. And as a site visitor, I'm getting a lot of feedback now from birth centers that they really like the new method. At the end of a site visit, I would say 99% of birth centers say to me, that was so helpful. I was really frightened about this, especially birth centers becoming accredited for the first time. And they really appreciate it. We spend so much time with education. That's why we're doing this job. We want more birth centers, and we want to see them succeed.
I have done reaccreditation a couple times now, and it is not as laborious as it sounds. There is a manual, there is a straightforward process. There are so many birth centers you can ask to help. There are probably consultants out there who help, and you gotta just check the check boxes, go through the list, follow the instructions, and the things that you will have to create in your first year, you will not have to necessarily recreate. You'll update. If you change your EHR, you'll update it, but they're all things you will use. They're things that lend themselves to a functional birth center and to safety, and it is not as laborious as it may sound.
We try to encourage the birth centers and provide education in sample forms on how to put systems in place so it's not overwhelming. It can be if you are not staying on top of things. We encourage the birth centers to take a little time over the years to keep up with everything, and having those systems in place is what will help it go smoother. There is the self-evaluation report, which is basically like a take-home test, but it really does help the birth center to look at each individual thing and really assess their compliance with that. If it is a birth center who we are visiting every 3 years, they can look at their past self-evaluation report and just update the information from before. So we do try to make it easier and more streamlined than possible. We do try to provide as much education as possible so that any new person will have all the information they need in order to be up on accreditation.
Been accredited for a very long time, so I do it every 3 years. The first one can be daunting just because it's, Excel spreadsheets and SIRS and, what's an education versus what's required. I can understand it can be very confusing, especially with a very small staff, but we offer lots of resources. Michelle, the assistants are great about answering questions on a regular basis, like emailing and getting back to you. Whoever the staff has always been very helpful. And we are working on other processes to help people bring along in those aspects so we can partner with them. But I feel like once you do it once or twice, it's not so bad anymore.